I don't understand. Oh, glasses. I can't see anything.
Another feeling. On in. Ink. Hey. Hi there. How are you? Hi.
All right, let's go ahead and get started. So, welcome everyone to the Ventura County Climate Emergency Council regular meeting here on Monday, November 20th, 2023, starting at 12:03 here at the Atlantic Conference Room, Hall of Administration. And we don't have anybody else calling in from offsite. So let's go to item number 1 then, or item number 2, the roll call, please.
Vice Chair White,
I'm here.
Councilmember Syed,
I'm here.
Chair Munoz Stop,
Here.
Councilmember DeTore,
Here.
Councilmember Perez, here. Councilmember Dora Morella. Councilmember Keith Corolla,
Here.
Councilmember Para, Councilmember Camarillo,
Here.
and Councilmember Crowe.
Here.
Okay, do we have any introductions at this time?
We do not have any introductions for the council members. I feel like the presenters will introduce them before their presentations.
Okay. Very good. So let's go to item number 3, Pledge of Allegiance. And Councilmember DeTore, would you please lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
Everyone, right hand over your heart. Ready, begin. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation.
Item number 4 is the approval of the minutes from our meeting of October the 23rd. Would anyone care to make a motion?
I move that we accept the minutes as presented.
Okay. Second. Okay. Motion has been made and seconded. Can we have a roll call, please?
Vice Chair White,
Aye.
Councilmember Syed,
Aye.
Chair Munoz Snop,
Yes.
Councilmember DeTore,
Aye.
Councilmember Perez,
Aye.
Councilmember Varela, Councilmember Keith Corolla,
Aye.
Councilmember Para, Councilmember Camarillo,
Aye.
and Councilmember Crowe.
Aye.
All right, thank you. Motion has been made, seconded, and unanimously approved. So moving on to correspondence agenda, item number 6, we don't have anything to report there. And we'll move on then to the regular agenda. So item number 7 is to receive a presentation on the Ventura County Waste Reduction Initiatives. And we have guests here from EJ Harrison and Sons. So Heather, do you want to go ahead and introduce the group?
Mike Harrison will be presenting, and who's joining you?
We have Jim Harrison, Vice President, Dan Drake, Public Relations, our good friend Joe Camarillo.
I would get to listen for once.
All right, welcome.
Sorry. I'm trying to, okay. There's a slight delay with the mouse. The PowerPoint presentation, it doesn't allow you to minimize. So I don't know how we're gonna do that.
Let me try something really quick.
Perfect.
Right, this is. so
We call it Victor IT.
good.
Perfect.
Magnificent.
Very good.
All right.
Good job.
You wanna drive and?
Sure, if that works for you.
All right, I am here today to present to you what has been our climate action management plan for the last 30 or so years. Give you a little background of where we're at and what we're thinking and where we think we're going. This business of ours is really all about hard work and innovation. I mean, that's really what EJ instilled in everybody a long time ago, growing up in the Depression. It was all about reuse and recycling, and that was really instilled in the whole business. So a lot of these concepts really are second nature to our business. Next. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's go back. These objectives of ours are probably very familiar to everybody, but that's what we're all trying to do: improve, reduce, use alternative energies, and make a better life for everybody in the community that we live in. Next. So again, these areas of focus are really just, they're very intuitive to us. We're doing them without almost even knowing. And we're well in advance of all the regulations that currently exist. AB 32 being the big one. We were doing these things back in the 80s. So the items that we revolve around are waste diversion, transportation, and decarbonization. Waste diversion, Gold Coast Recycling was purchased in the late 80s. And we've been in front of all the mandates ever since then in our recycling efforts. Transportation, we were moving towards alternative fuels back in the mid-90s, with the first dual fuel engines being implemented. We built the first liquefied natural gas station in the early 2000s. We paid for technology to convert diesel engines into gas engines. That was fun. And today, 100% of our fleet runs on renewable fuels, with renewable CNG, renewable LNG, and renewable diesel. With the decarbonization efforts, we partnered with Agrman over 30 years ago for the carbon capture and sequestration to further reduce greenhouse gases. So we've been doing this for a long, long time already, well in advance of AB 32, which was in 2006. A couple of pictures here. That's the liquefied natural gas station. I think that's 2002. That's the 13,000 gallon storage tank that stores the liquid, still in use today. And this is a picture of the diesel engine conversion. That's the actual engine itself. We still have a handful of these actually in operation today. Next. Our waste management strategies, again, are very intuitive to us. This is what we already do, but they're really the only way to move forward and to keep progress happening is to follow these strategies. We need to continually increase diversion. It's a constant struggle, especially in today's economy. We need to educate, motivate, and empower the public, because without them, it's very difficult. And we need to continue to implement best-in-class technologies so that we can measure what we're doing and document our compliance efforts, which is very key in today's world with CalRecycle. We have to not only tell them that we did it, but we have to show them how we did it. So with 100,000-ish customers, we have to document that efficiently, and that's the only way to do that is through technology. The picture in the middle is kind of a fun one for me. That's a trash container and it's full of green waste. Those are things that we have to get in front of. And we don't want to have a carrot to stick. We want to bring along the public, help them understand what they're doing and encourage them to want to do better. Because without them, again, it's very difficult. Next.
Just a quick question. What's renewable diesel?
Renewable diesel is basically the same chemical composure of normal carb diesel, except it's not made from petroleum products. It's made from renewable products like oils and greases and fats, etc. It's very interesting fuel because it has the same power output as carb diesel. It looks like water. All the hydrocarbons are removed. It burns cleaner. It's better for the maintenance of the vehicle. It's cheaper. So yeah, there's benefits across the board.
But it produces the same BTUs.
And I guess it's just harder to come by than normal diesel.
Actually, it's not. It's publicly available now. If you notice, 76 stations actually carry it. Yeah. Next. So ways that we've been measuring our footprint are through the climate registry. The climate registry was implemented in 2007. We've been a member ever since 2008. It's an independent organization that allows us to document what our carbon footprint is, and it's also verified by a third party. So it's not just us producing the information. We're providing our usage and somebody else is verifying it for us to confirm. We report all scope 1, scope 2 emissions, which are direct and indirect for obvious things, mobile, stationary, indirect, such as electrical consumption, and also scope 3 emissions, which are very important, which you'll see. They allow us to basically capture our complete carbon management plan. Without scope 3, we're missing a big piece. Next. These list the mobile sort of the emission sources, which I think again are fairly obvious. Scope 1 is our mobile and stationary and fugitives. Scope 2 again is indirect electricity. And scope 3, that's a real big one, where we're measuring avoided emissions by diverting waste. And we're also measuring the life cycle emission savings from recycling, which is huge, especially for the work that we do. As you can see, 94% of our inventory is mobile emissions, which you might expect. And the remainder are fairly insignificant as well. Next.
I have a question. So on that avoided emissions, is that like a percentage of, you're just estimating out that this is what has been reduced by?
No, it's more formal than that, and we'll get to that here in the next couple
Okay,
of slides.
great, thank you.
It's not just our opinion.
Okay, thanks.
AB 32 has done a lot of things. It's been updated several times since its inception. In 2014, they introduced this concept called net zero, which is basically your avoided direct emission, your indirect emissions offset the operational emissions. So if you avoided 100, but you only had 10 that you generated, you have a net savings. And that's kind of what's coming up to your question. It also talks about business as usual. So if the scoping plan never existed, what would the picture look like today? And this is a graph over time of business as usual versus what we actually do. And in 2020, you can see there was a enormous savings if we were by converting to gas engines versus if we were 100% diesel. So we're doing all these things and we've been doing them all for a long time. And this is just one component of it. Next slide.
What's the big peak there? You guys added some fleet to operations or you?
Yes, so in this time period, is when we had a
2015.
big push in CNG conversion.
Hmm.
So we ran LNG ever since the late nineties, because that was a technology at the time. CNG wasn't really there yet. But as time gone on, LNG has fallen on the wayside and CNG has really rocketed in terms of the technology that engine can do today. So we had a big push at that time, and we continue to push towards CNG. We haven't done any LNG in a long, long time. But we still run them every day. Next slide. So to your point, the registry classifies emissions that are within the company's value chain. So part of the company's value chain is responsible for management of materials and waste. And basically, emission factors have been developed for avoided emissions through either CARB or the US EPA. And it's a real simple math problem. You take their emission factor, multiply it by the tons of that material, and that equals your avoided emissions. So that's all done by somebody else much smarter than us. I listed a lot of the basic emission factors, and you can see these are the recycling factors, these are the organics factors, and these are the landfill factors. So basically, to repurpose an aluminum can obviously produces a lot of emissions. That's why it has the biggest emission factor, being a negative number. And it goes on down the line. You can see that landfill has a positive number. And again, these are the references of where these factors are taken from. So we basically take our tonnage, report it to Climate Registry, and they put it through their fancy stuff and spit out these magical final numbers for us. Go to the next slide. These are our tonnage and product summaries for the last 10 plus years. So on the left there are the material tonnages. You can see the things to point out are the landfill tons versus the recycled tons more than anything else. And you can see the trends that are happening. They're not what we want. There's more being landfilled than there's being recycled. We want to flip that switch, but it's an enormous challenge. It's not just about having a program, it's about getting that participation.
It's the consumer, huh?
Yes.
You know, going to your slide earlier where you show a rubbish container with organic material in it, does your company then pause and send something else out to clean that up, or you just take it as the waste then for the day?
It will get disposed of. Whatever container it's in, it will get disposed of.
Okay.
And we are measured against that as well. We have to do quarterly sampling to represent what we're doing, what we're seeing. And that sampling kind of tells us, hey, there's too much of this or not enough of that. We need to do something about it. And that's where that technology really helps, because we're able to capture that, attach that documentation to the actual customer's profile, and then we can go focus on that customer. These are the product summaries that also go into all the equations. You can see our liquefied natural gas usage, our electrical usage, diesel gas, our CNG truck usage. So you can see in 2016 is when we implemented our big CNG station. That's why those are ramping up. LNG has been fairly stable. Electricity, you can see that going up. So that's our entire electrical consumption, not only at the hauling company, but also at the recycle center. The recycle center has huge machinery in there that's it's all electric. So we just did a major upgrade there right around 2018. So yeah. Next slide. So this is a list of our emissions and our avoided emissions. These are the actual scope 1, 2 emissions over here. You can see it's fairly consistent, around 11,000 per year. And that's all emissions, mobile, indirect, fugitive, and stationary. So it's fairly consistent. And then with all those emission factors, this is kind of the summary of that at the end of the day. So you can see the total tons and the emission savings. So recycling has a negative emission saving. That's a big number. We'd like to see that. Composting, organic, same thing. It's a big number. And then the landfill offsets whatever, so that we get final diversion or final reduction at the end. Next slide. So this table kind of brings it all together, operational versus avoided. You can see the same information over the last 12 plus years. The avoideds are big negative numbers, and you can see the ratio. That's the net zero ratio that we call it. So we've been negative for a long time. And that's kind of the goal at the end of the day, right? But again, this graph is troubling. You can see that over 70% is still being diverted. And, you know, the China sword back in 2017 didn't help us, where they started they started eliminating imports because it was too contaminated. Well, that affected us as well. So that was part of our effort to upgrade our machinery to clean that up. And now and ever since 2018, our exports have been less than 1.5% contaminated, which is something I'll accept. So, but at the end of the day, it's still coming back to the consumers that we serve. That is the biggest challenge. That's why our strategies that we talked about earlier are so very important. Next slide. So this kind of summarizes it. You can see our net zero graph for the last, since 2010, I believe. You can see how it goes up and down every year. It's something we're proud of. We were gold certified by Climate Registry in 2020. We're the only hauler in Ventura County that does this. We're committed to reducing emissions, obviously. We're 100% renewable on our fuel consumption. We have local facilities to help reduce BMTs, etc. And we believe we're responsibly managing our waste shed. Next slide. So you may have all heard about what CARB has done to us this year in the springtime. They've mandated now that we convert to electric vehicles. It's a phase-in schedule that we have to be 100% electric by 2042, which might seem like a long ways away, but the schedule starts in 2030, which is only a couple of years away. So there's lots of challenges there with electrical infrastructure. Are the circuits big enough? Are the power plants big enough? The answer in East Ventura is no. So those are challenges that we're studying now and how we can help Edison come along. But I want to present this from a different point of view. If you look at the graph on the left, the energy systems and transitions, that was done back in the 90s, and there's no mention of electric anywhere on that. So it wasn't even thought of back then. This here might be a little hard to see, but it gives you different carbon intensities based on fuels. Petroleum diesel, electricity, hydrogen, fossil CNG, fossil LNG, and renewable diesel. Renewable diesel is very low. Fossils gas is higher. You can see carb diesel is around 100, and electric is, you know, not much less depending on where you're at in the country. This document here is from CARB. It talks about the California average grid electricity used for transportation fuel. So there's several resources of where electricity is made, most of which is natural gas. So the carbon intensity today, well, this is back from 21, is 81. That's really not much less than carb diesel. So is that really the answer? Are we going backwards? Is this something we should be pushing? Because it really is going to affect how we move forward in the next coming years, which is gonna affect everybody in Ventura County. I love this graph, this information here, renewable natural gas carbon intensities. Over the last 5 quarters, negative. What are we doing? So that's my presentation.
What's that last RNG, sorry, what's that,
Renewable natural gas.
right?
So all of our gas is renewable. It's not fossil.
Okay, and what is that graph telling you? What are these negative red numbers?
This is your carbon intensity measurement that we're measured against. So these are all carbon intensities of these different fuels. So carb diesel's at 100. Renewable natural gas is negative. So it's a big difference. And renewable diesel's very good as well. So, and we use all these products today. We've been using them. And we did this again. It's just secondhand nature to us. We're in this business and this is what we do.
All right, are there any questions? Yes, Vice Chair Whip.
Yeah, Mike, yeah, very impressive. Yeah, we think that electrification, those of us who work in climate action, think electrification is essential for moving forward. Does Harrison get its electricity through the Clean Power Alliance, the 100% renewable like the county does, and
Yes,
probably most?
yes.
So it's not coming from gas plants or coal plants?
Correct.
Okay,
But this is more of a general discussion because we're just one entity that has to do this. There's, the entire state has to do this and not everybody's gonna have that or use that option.
so you're looking at electrifying your fleet, your trucks, your vehicles on that schedule that you described?
We are gonna do our best to follow that schedule, but we believe there's gonna be significant delays in schedules because the infrastructure is not there, the trucks aren't there. We actually demoed a side loader for about 3 weeks last month, and it can't perform the same. You basically have to have 2 of them to do 1 day's worth of work. You wanna send it to Carpinteria, forget about it. It can do maybe 1 load. So the weight of these vehicles is enormous. On this front loader, the battery is so heavy that they put it right behind the cab and basically almost made the front axle overweight. They pushed the body back so that the load weight wouldn't affect the front axle weight. So there's a lot of challenges that haven't been worked out. We still have yet to find a front loader at all. So with that, we think there's gonna be significant delays in the schedule.
Any other questions?
I'm just gonna add, I'm sure Fleet has more to say about medium to heavy duty vehicles, but we have our EV Blueprint grant where we have funding to purchase electric buses for the city of Thousand Oaks. And we've had to extend, or we're working to extend that EV Blueprint grant because the buses that Thousand Oaks got didn't hold a charge. And so now they're looking for new buses and they can't find any. So it's kind of a bummer.
Sure.
So hopefully the technology will.
And one more thing to add on the electric, before I forget, this is about the fuel. This is not about the actual electric vehicle itself. So the carbon intensity of a battery by itself pushes the carbon intensity way even further. So that's something to consider as well.
Councilmember Camarillo and then.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. Great presentation. So Mike and I have been living in this space for decades. And one of the things for this council is important to remember as we move forward is you can't do anything without measuring to improve. So to not understand your footprint and your inventory, which we continue to ask, is very difficult to make a recommendation to the board on what a good idea is. Because someone could say electric vehicles is a good idea, but when you start to look at the data and where we are today, it's not such a good idea. Not to say technology won't get better, the grid won't get better, all due in time. May as well, get better, but we have to be patient on that. More importantly, this county, in all of its contracting, follows the strategy of best value. And in order to meet these mandates, best value takes into consideration the environment and the economic impact, as well as social. So when you look at Mike's chart around the increasing tons to landfills, that's more driven economically than anything. Because like Mike said, the Harrisons are the only company in Ventura County, and I'm gonna say probably one of the very few companies in the whole state that has been measuring their footprint since 2008. So in comparison, when bidding, that should be a criteria and a decision-making factor. What is their carbon footprint? How does that translate into the price presented? Because whether we like it or not, it's a lot more expensive to do the right thing. And recycling is way more expensive than landfilling. So therefore, when prices are set at the curb, you only have so much money to do what we're proposing to do. Technologies are getting better every day with recycling. Like Mike said, they just upgraded with composting, with creating renewable natural gas from food waste and green waste and things like that. So it's not that we can't do it. It's, can we afford it? And are we measuring to improve, which I think are the two major factors in how we make decisions here.
Yeah, I'll just add real quick, the cost of one electric front load or side load truck is on the order of $900,000. The cost of a natural gas truck today is about $350,000. So do the math. Twice the expense, half the work. Something's not good.
So Councilmember Crowe, and then I think I saw you. Go. Yeah, okay, so let's go.
Yeah, we're seeing the same issues in my industry too, right? Is all these electrical vehicles that are not quite functionally there yet, and then their availability is drawn out for years, so it's gonna be a slow process. But I guess big picture, maybe this isn't the presentation. I guess I'm just trying to get an understanding of, you got trash, organic waste, and recycled items. You get 3 bins in your driveway. Where do those 3 bins go? And like, how are they recycled? Where do they go? How are you capturing this stuff for each 3 of those elements, if I may?
So the trash is the easiest. It goes to the Tulum landfill.
Okay.
Or the Saving landfill. The recycling goes to Gold Coast Recycling, where it's processed, separated, and sold to the market by commodity. And the organics go to an aggregate facility for processing.
Good.
I guess just my only comment, especially as we're thinking about funding and ways of just being in alignment with what the state is also mandating. Are you also considering federal funding or grant funding to help support some of these efforts?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We're gonna reach out everywhere we can.
Can I make a comment on the grant funding? So the state of California just issued a grant funding cycle of $145 million, which seems enormous, right? There were $350 million worth of applications to build infrastructure for organic waste diversion in the state of California. 80 million for the public sector, 74 million for the private sector, with applications up to $10 million. So you can see how quickly any kind of source of funding just immediately is gone. Without the private sector, adding on to that, it's the infrastructure part is a serious challenge.
Yes, go ahead, Councilmember.
Mike, when you're looking at where the trash goes to the different destinations, I thought I saw combustibles or combustion. What, can you elaborate on that?
So a portion of our wood recycling goes to biomass facilities up in the Central Valley. But it's a pretty small fraction.
Those are being shut down, actually.
Mhm.
They're becoming less and less of an option.
Can I just say something?
Yes.
Our staff works diligently to put all this information together that they ask for, but that's not the end of the story. Then it goes to the climate registry and they put it together. And then they pay an independent consulting firm to go over all of the numbers. So this is a very tedious process. It's not something that you turn in the numbers and then they call you in 3 months and say, hey, thank you, you really did well. We can wait a whole year, be in the process of doing the next year and still not know how we did in that year. And this is also very, very costly. Costs a lot of money to be on the climate registry. We have to pay them for what they do, and we get that. The city of Ventura entered it just after we did, and they fell out of it because it's very, very difficult to do. Gathering all of these numbers takes a lot of diligence, a lot of good record keeping. I mean, there's no guesswork in any of this. And so, and the last thing I'd like to say is if you're interested, we'd love to host you on a tour at Gold Coast Recycling. Some of the council members have already been, but I think it's really eye-opening. It's again, where the Harrisons, who I thought they were a little crazy during the China sword when there was no markets and we couldn't sell anything. They decided to spend over, I don't know, what it ended up being, $5 million to
Wow.
retool the whole facility. So we spent money betting that we could be so good that we'd find a new market and we could sell the material. So now we are down to that criteria that China asked for that everybody thought was impossible, 1.5%. So I mean, I'm really proud to work for the Harrisons because they're very diligent and they put their money where their mouth is. Trying to build 2 facilities in Ventura. These gentlemen right here are at the crux of Limonera and Mountain View. We've spent $10 million,
A lot, just say a lot.
$10 million on Lime, and we are permitted,
Track.
but now we're in the building process, and for that we need permits. So it's gonna take us a long time. We're hoping to maybe be operational like end of 2024.
That's a goal.
Mountain View was a facility all built. We went and saw it. We thought, this is great. We wouldn't have to build anything. It's in the city of Oxnard. We again thought city needs this facility. They're gonna help us build. We're gonna get this thing done. We've been at it for 6 years and we've exceeded the cost by 3 times our estimate.
A lot,
About right.
just say a lot.
So anyway, it will open soon, maybe. Right? There's
So
lots of delays
Yeah.
for supplies because now we're in that. We're not, can't call it the pandemic mode anymore, or what you want to call it, but it's very hard to buy something and get it.
Yeah.
You know, when trucks, you order a truck and you know you're gonna be 18 months maybe to get it. So it's a wonderful place to be because we can actually see that we are making a change. If people who lived in homes actually put all their 3 carts out and filled all of them, it would be great. The green waste is the most important right now because the food waste goes in it. And we'd love to see trash empty and everything is not going in there because you're only buying the stuff that you don't have to throw away. But food waste is really the next horizon. And again, Mike and Bill are at the crux of trying to make this happen, having a facility that actually can do something with the food waste, that it has a market. Anyway, thank you for giving me my opportunity to soapbox.
Absolutely. Yes, council member.
Mike, from the infrastructure point, and I don't know if you can answer this question, but what's the word or the perception from Edison PG? I mean, have they communicated to your business and other businesses like yours? Are they going to be able to provide the demand that all the electric vehicles that are proposed to the mandate? Are they going to be able to do it?
Yes, I met with them last year.
Okay.
So they have a process. But they're not gonna do anything until you give them a 10-year plan.
Hmm.
And it's hard to give somebody a 10-year plan when you don't know what next year looks like. How am I gonna tell you how many trucks I'm gonna buy when they're not even available?
Right.
So we are in communication. We know what they need from us.
Okay.
We may start slowly with them next year with some of the smaller class vehicles. to at least get the ball rolling. But all their infrastructure needs to be upgraded. And they'll do it. They have the money to do it. They're motivated to do it. But it's gonna start with us doing an application and committing to specifics.
Okay.
But another piece of infrastructure shortage is our properties. Our properties are only so big. They're full of trucks, natural gas fueling stations or posts. Where are we gonna put all these charging stations? Are we gonna have to move because of this? Those are all things we have to work out.
Right.
And where do you put a bunch of trucks? I mean, we have a lot of trucks,
Oh, no,
not
we don't.
just a few trucks.
That's what I think about is the logistics, you know, the conflicts that they're gonna cause. Yeah.
That's what keeps me up.
Okay, thank you.
Mike, a question from the very start, because it sounds like you guys were the leaders in the industry to move forward on this. Have you taken a look at like approximate numbers of what your investments have been over the course of time to get to this point here?
I could easily say it's in the hundreds of millions. Bill probably can pick out of that. I don't have an exact number.
I applaud you for that. That's a big investment.
That's why we need a job all the time.
All right, any other questions for the Harrison Group? No? All right, wonderful. Thank you so much for doing.
Have other things to do. And I think that we would love at least I know I would love a tour and some.
I would
more
love
I,
a tour.
I would too. Yeah, yeah.
Thank you for offering. We'll be in contact.
Did you have
Yes.
your card, Mike?
Thank
I think I have cards with me, just, what, I think you have my.
I have your contact
Yeah.
information and we will
That's
also,
next year, right?
yes, and we will
Yes.
be reaching out for some data for our GHG inventory also. So FYI, you'll be hearing from me multiple things.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank y'all.
Oh, you know what? Public comments. I forgot.
Thank you.
So is there anybody from the public who would like to make a comment on this agenda item? So you can raise your hand or take yourself off of mute. Looks like we only have two people.
3 people.
Virtual, 3 people virtual. Anybody here? No one online? Okay, all right. Thank you. Here's- Good to see you.
Good to see you too.
Thank you, now.
Thank you very much for coming.
Thank you.
Like your words.
All right, so we are on agenda item number 8, receiving a presentation on General Services Agency Fleet and Facility Sustainability Initiatives. So welcome. Oops.
Great afternoon, Chairwoman, Council, staff. We have in the room Dave Sackett, which is our agency director from the General Services Agency. I'm Craig Futz, Chief Deputy Director. I'll talk about facilities and I'll turn it over to Chris Bell, who's the fleet manager, to talk about the fleet. Next slide. So just want to give a quick review of what it is that we actually manage. So we don't have the opportunity to overall encompass all of the county properties. We do have the government center here, the Todd Road Jail, Juvenile Justice Centers. Those are our largest facilities. 106 facilities, 3.4 million square feet, but there are agencies that we are not currently taking care of their facilities. So there are other people that are making the same decisions and same investments that we are for different facilities. Hospitals certainly being the largest one of these groups. Next slide. In order to put together a little bit of the story, what I did is I looked at the general plan and also the state level emissions council and looked at the different recommendations, mandates that they had as to what areas we want to reduce our greenhouse gases, what are the products and services that we can deliver to do so. I grouped those into buildings just because of the way that we're structured in my department. I oversee all the facilities maintenance, separate projects division, separate grounds and housekeeping area, as well as security, special services, and a few others. So specifically in the buildings area, we have the renewable energy, water conservation, electrification, Grounds, the two, and then the organic waste, just as Mike was talking about from Harrison for housekeeping. So a little bit smaller font. This was a summary of the actions that we have already taken. So to the point of Mr. White's question earlier, the county does purchase green power from CPA that started in 2019. Just want to make a special note that General Services Agency works on an internal service fund. So basically what that means is we have to charge out whatever services we provide, and that creates a rate. Anytime that something financially might be better in one area, better in two areas, but it costs more, then a lot of times the economics weigh out because we have to fit into a specific rate that's been established. That was an exception for the green power purchase from CPA based on a board presentation and the board approving that. So the Board of Supervisors authorized us to spend more money in order to get the green power and have that benefit to the climate. In the solar area, we do have over 6 megawatts operating right now. We have 3 1-megawatt systems here at the Government Center, Todd Rogel and Juvenile Justice Center. We do have 3 purchase power agreements across the 2 facilities at Satakoy and at the building at Vanguard. We have 11 fire stations that were each equipped with 2 kilowatts of solar power, which was not a significant amount, but it was a grant. It was an opportunity a few years ago, so that was taken. The last 5 new fire stations built came with the solar power, so it's now a requirement as we build the new ones. And then we just completed a couple of years ago in partnership with multiple different entities, the 3-megawatt system in Fillmore, which we get the credits for. So those.
I just want to make a point of clarification. GSA does not do capital construction. So he's using the county. So I just don't want anybody to ask us about putting solar on new stuff, because that's not under our responsibilities. Just a point of clarification.
So the 3-megawatt system in Fillmore, we are gaining the credit for, but it was a partnership between 2 other entities in order for it to be funded, constructed, and then it was passed over to us. That's significant because we have some facilities that we manage that we do not intend on putting any solar power on because they get the credits from this system. And if we install even 1 kilowatt of power, we lose the right from SCE to gain the credits for this system at that facility. And so right now we've maxed out the credits that we can get with the facilities without solar power. Energy conservation, so we do make sure that we evaluate the systems for the most energy efficiency as we replace equipment. So we recently did some chillers and boilers. We are installing new light fixtures across. We did complete a level 1 energy audit about 1.5 years ago, which we are evaluating for future operation. Water conservation, we did here at the Government Center do a full replacement of the control system for our irrigation. We also did it at a few of our outlying facilities, so that provided us significant water conservation. In the grounds, I'll talk a little bit on the next slide about our future solar system for Government Center, the expansion that we're going to do that will require us to take out some trees. So what we did is last year we briefed the Board of Supervisors, said, okay, we have a certain number of trees that we're going to lose. We want to maximize the green space we have at Government Center to add additional trees, and that's what this line is here. We have over 140 already planted. We will end up planting a total of 200. We are, if you walk around the Government Center, installing some new drought resistant and pollinator gardens, which we're pretty excited about. The ground staff is loving the flexibility, the creativity, the opportunity to reduce irrigation requirements, put in local drought resistant plants. And that has also allowed us to gain a couple other customers. So Ag Commissioner came out and said, hey, can you do the same thing in Santa Paula? And we actually had 2 different landscape architects come by and ask us, hey, how did you decide this? Because they have customers, private customers that are asking them to replicate it. So that's pretty exciting. On the housekeeping side, we did complete all of the work for our organic waste collection for all the kitchens. So anywhere that we were making the food, providing the food to the detention facilities, the cafeteria here, that is all being collected for recycling. And we do have a couple of small trials going on the local break as well. Here's what our future plans are. Most of these are already approved by the Board of Supervisors. So when we talk about solar, we have about over 6 megawatts live now. We have approval to almost get to another 6 megawatts. So the Board of Supervisors approved for us to work with Forefront Power to install additional solar canopies across the rest of our parking lots here at the government center, minus the R lot, just because of the trees in the R lot, we wouldn't get the benefit. We are in design for that right now. That will include extra conduit in the ground for the future addition of 350 electric vehicle charging stations. So we didn't want to have to spend the money to dig up the ground twice. It was a foresight to make sure we can support the fleet in the future. And then we do have a small addition going at the Todd Road, Joe. As we look at demand flexibility, we're looking at different battery energy storage systems, allowing us to collect more of the solar that we're producing during the day, save it for the higher cost use later in the evening. And, you know, one of the things at the government center, whenever you think about peak use, you know, most businesses, the peak use is during the workday. When you go home, the peak use is at night and the evening when you're there, able to use everything. For us, our peak doesn't change as drastically as most businesses because we do have the detention facilities that we're supporting 24/7. So here at the government center, we have approval to install 1.9 megawatt battery. It'll be over next to the generator facility. That'll allow us to capture more of the solar being produced by the expansion that we install. We also have an approved and designed battery to be installed at Todd Road Jail. And we also have approved for fire stations 42 and 43. The difference of this next line in the middle is that at fire station 41 in Oakview Park, that's actually for solar and battery storage. So we'll be getting both for those two smaller facilities. As we look to energy conservation, we know AB 2208 starts to reduce the access to fluorescent bulbs beginning 1 January of next year. It completes in 1 January of 2025. So we're in the process of retrofitting buildings. Our intent is to actually replace the fixture so we gain the most savings and most conservation instead of just plug and play the lights. So we want to remove the ballast, get as much bang for the buck. That does require an investment though. And then with the energy audits that we completed, we're working on a overall plan for Todd Road Jail. You know, here's a facility that has a lot of different uses for energy, and we want to come up with the best long-term solution for energy conservation at that facility that operates 24/7. For electrification, what we're working with now on vendors is to support the creation of electrical master plans. We want to study each of the buildings. As we look towards electrification, we know that we're going to move to electrical equipment for grounds equipment, electrical fleet, but also electrical equipment for the building. And what we don't want to do is be short-sighted and have to put in a new transformer, a new feed, a new bus terminal, whatever the requirement is, every year for 7 years. So we want to complete these studies, look at what the overall requirement would be in the future, and make sure that we're investing in transformers, electrical feeds at the smart steps throughout the future. And then for smaller, less complicated facilities, at the end, our intent will be at the end of the equipment useful service life to replace those for the electrification there. Next slide. So quick summary for the facilities. We are 100% green power purchased from CPA. We do have 6.6 megawatts live. That's roughly 31% of the managed facilities from GSA's usage. We have approval for another 6 megawatts, which will take us up to approximately 58% of our managed usage. We do have 2.88 megawatts of battery storage systems approved. And then the last three that I talked about on the last slide will require additional funding. So we submitted a request to the CEO's office and we'll continue to work with them for funding of electrical master plan. The $560,000 would capture 5 of our larger facilities. We do need to fund the lighting retrofits, just as we discussed on the AV, and then we want to continue to fund as early as possible the future actions of the energy audits. And that is the rest of the brief from the facilities. Stand by for any questions if you have any.
Okay, any questions from the council?
Yeah. On the battery storage, the 2.88 is what's been approved. What percentage of that is? How much is the fill of what we need? That 2.88, is that 100% of what we need or would like, or is that 2%? But where is
That's
that?
a really good question. We have not calculated what the full battery energy storage system desired would be to match everything that we need.
Okay.
We have come to the 2.88 basically on the opportunity of grants and shared costs with power purchase agreements, energy savings agreements. And that was what penciled out as the best economics moving forward with us and our partner.
Much like your home system, you don't size the battery to meet the whole demand. You typically size to offset the peak charges so it's economical. I mean, if you wanted to buy into enough battery storage to power your whole house, it'd be hugely expensive. You couldn't do it. It's the same thing for the county government.
What is the current emergency backup source of energy?
Diesel generator.
Diesel generator.
Fully, I mean, it fully powers, it could fully power the government center, power the jails and other critical facilities.
And has the county gone to the use of renewable diesel for that now?
Absolutely.
Yes.
We did that, what, 5 years ago?
16.
Or the
diesels? For the generators?
All the diesel we buy is renewable.
Is that included for the fire stations, county fire stations?
No.
Okay.
No, they're not, because they got the small tanks, right?
Right. They have
I'm looking at Chris, because that's.
So fire is a special district, their
Right.
purchasing is a little bit different, but we have contracts, so we share the same contracts. So
Okay.
SC Fuels offers renewable diesel, they also offer regular diesel, they offer different sizes of trucks and whatnot. So I don't know what decision specifically fire makes, but they have availability to it.
And they're going to have to anyway, based on the current law that's been passed. So it's just a matter of them complying with that, probably by the end of next year. I don't know.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Yeah, Councilmember Crowe. and
I'm guessing funding is the mechanism for how we're sizing the solar. Is that? Is that the mechanism for
Yes.
like how much solar we're installing? It's just a matter of how much funds we have available today and tomorrow.
Yeah, so it's actually a economic business analysis between us and our partner who can apply for the grants through SCE Edison, through the federal, through the state. And then we do a balance over whatever the life expectancy is of either the solar system or the battery. And then we establish what the largest system is that we could benefit.
So it's called a power purchase agreement, so that there's no money, these ones, there's no money coming out of the county budget. So as he said, the contractor develops finances and gets grants, whatever we can, tax credits, which we can't get, they can get.
Yep.
And so essentially, that's what makes the business deal work, is because they can make some money off of the process. Actually costs us less, the net cost to us is reduced over time. But they're able to go after if they couldn't go after the tax rebates, the deals wouldn't go, because that makes the deal go. Which we can't get, otherwise we do it ourselves.
Okay. And then Councilmember Said and then Vice Chair White.
I just had a quick clarification. So you mentioned county facilities and hospitals are pretty large, I imagine, part of that. Who is responsible for hospitals?
HCA, the healthcare agency, takes care of the facilities of the hospital separately.
Okay. Vice Chair White and then.
Yeah, not a question, is more of an attaboy, Craig. This is great to see, and Dave. Great to see what the county's doing on climate, which is why we're here in this room. Keep up the good work.
Thanks, sir.
Yeah, and then Councilmember Perez.
Yeah, just curious, in looking at the requires additional funding for line 1 electrical master plan, what's the duration or timeline in getting that? I know the funding is being requested for that, but what's the timeline for that?
As soon as possible. Is that an acceptable answer? So we would like to have it now. We were hoping to be able to request the funds a couple of months ago. We did have to work through the right mechanisms, find out where the budgeting number is. Now we have the budgeting number. We know this is what we want to do before we start executing what Chris is about to brief. And also the electrification that we just talked about. So as we're looking forward and we're putting together future budgets and rates for next year, we have already identified some grounds landscaping equipment that we want to electrify and purchase this fiscal year for receipt next fiscal year. The sooner I can get this done, the more likely I am to be able to have the infrastructure here to support that equipment when it arrives.
So in the long run, you know, we're making these investments so that there would be a reduction and, you know, everything that we want. But there would be then maybe cost savings in terms of how energy used to be purchased and now that we have our own source. Are you calculating that in as well over the course of time?
So that's one of the hard things with electrification. If we wanted to electrify a building and money was not an issue, we could start planning and designing that now, start purchasing the equipment and put it in place. It doesn't just take, you know, tens of millions of dollars to electrify the government center buildings, but it would at least double, if not triple, our electrical cost in each given year. So as an internal service fund, as we look at those rates, and we explain those to our agencies, which are our customers and the CEO, we would just need that direction from board of supervisors, just like the purchase of green power from CPA, that yes, that is where we want to spend the money for that future greenhouse gas savings.
So we have some large boilers
Mhm.
here at the jail and not under us, but at the hospital. And those to convert that to electric would be, like, as you said, from a capital investment standpoint, very high, but then it would have a huge impact on the electric bill. Try to heat the water using electricity as opposed to gas. So that's what he's talking about is, you know, for us, we're, you know, as an ISF, we're obligated. I mean, that's part of our charter. We have to make the most economic decision unless we receive direction from the board to say, no, you can go like they do with the CPA. Yeah, go buy more expensive electricity because it's clean, and we acknowledge that your rates are gonna go up. Otherwise, we have to work within it's almost like we have a fiduciary requirement to our ratepayers to keep our rates down.
And that's part of the best value proposition. If we don't balance it, you know, we went to CPA 100% and doubled our electrical bill. So, you know, I can't pass those rates on. I have to figure out how to save money elsewhere to be a good citizen. So when you have that kind of infrastructure, not to say it won't change over time, but the faster you rush into this, the more expensive it is.
Any other questions from this group?
That's just great.
Yeah, so let's go to public comments. So anybody here? Oh, yes, go ahead.
GSA Fleet will present
Oh,
next, which
sure.
would be like their presentation and then public.
Absolutely.
Thank you all.
Yeah,
Thank you.
thank you, Craig. Dave.
Now that my legs are asleep. I'm Chris Melton. I'm the county's fleet manager. I started here about 5.5 years ago. When I started, I was the only person in this space. I worked with Heather. I was part of the blueprint that we put together. It was a lot. Brought on Robert Crawford. He's a manager. He oversees our fleet's administrative side. And as this has gone on over the past few years, it's still a lot. We brought on Colin Weber in the back. Colin is our sustainability program administrator. This is the realm that Colin was hired to work within. So we, as our requirements have grown and continue to grow, our team has to grow to help, you know, keep pace with it. So we're going to give you a little bit of it. You want to go next slide? Just a little bit of an overview of what we have done in fleet services, things that we've completed, kind of the track to where we are today, what we're doing today, and then we're going to talk about some of the things that are pending. So, all right, just real quick, these are going to go pretty fast. You know, in 2002, the Board of Supervisors put out a hybrid policy where we had to purchase hybrids when we can. So starting in 2004, they started purchasing hybrids. In 2007, we hit our 50th, and we currently have 51 hybrids. Over the course of time from 2002 to today, we've had about 179 hybrids in service. And just to kind of give you an idea, hybrids are what I would consider generic people moving vehicles. you know, we have a fleet of over 1,800 pieces of equipment and vehicles. But of that, a lot of it's law enforcement, a lot of it's construction, heavy equipment. When you get down to people movers, it's about 400, you know, so you can that kind of puts these numbers a little bit better in perspective. And I'll be honest, hybrids had a real big ramp up, and then when electric vehicles started coming out, hybrids kind of nosedived. There were a lot less manufacturers putting out hybrids. They were a lot harder to come by. Now you see Toyota, especially, you actually see there's a little bit of a revamp. Hybrids are starting to become more in vogue, so we see more hybrids available than what we have in years past. So, next slide, please. So talking about renewable diesel, it seems to be the topic of the day. You know, we transitioned in 2016 to renewable diesel. There's about an 80% reduction in greenhouse gas emissions with renewable diesel. Since 2016, we have bought just shy of 1.3 million gallons of it, and that creates a greenhouse gas reduction of about 10,000 metric tons. And then getting into electric vehicles, so in 2013, this is well before I was here, but we dipped our toes in the water of electric vehicles by putting in 3 Ford Focuses. And on those Ford Focuses, I can tell you they weren't the greatest cars. We learned a lot from them, and a lot of what we learned from the Ford Focuses helps to craft our strategy going forward. Even though these 3, we had to retire them early because they started out with about a 100-mile range. Within 4 years, they were down to a 60-mile range, and honestly, county business can't support that, you know. So we learned a lot from it, and it crafts some of the principles that we have in putting electric vehicles in place now, such as when we put in electric vehicles, we try to get the largest range that we can economically afford because we don't want battery degradation to lead to an early retirement of a vehicle. In 17, we did a central motor pool expansion where we put 11 of the Chevy Volts in service. They're actually all still out there. Those were the first hybrid electric vehicles, plug-in hybrid vehicles that we had available to all county employees. And then that led us to 2019. I was here for this one. We received approval from the board to put in 14 Chevy Volts. So Volts and Bolts, you get confusing, but Volts with the B, fully electric vehicles. Those are out there. You can go take a look at as well. And we used SCE's Charge Ready program for that. So we have partnered with SCE for various things of their various iterations of Charge Ready, and we continue to do that. So speaking of, in 2021, we did our phase 2, thanks to Heather, who brought us, hey, we've got this grant available. We were able to put in 18 more volts and 9 solar charging stations with, you can see these have 2 charging ports on each one. We put those across 4 remote motor pool locations. So now we've got electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids available here. We also have 4 distinct remote motor pools out in the county, like Simi Valley, Oxnard, for instance, Market Street and Ventura, that we have electric vehicles available as well.
You can go by the Camarillo Free Station there.
That's right, Camarillo. And so that leads us into what we did. What year did we do this? Wasn't this 2022? In 22, we did phase 3, where we're looking at 69 electric vehicles and plug-in hybrids, which is, you can see the numbers keep getting bigger. So this will put us, when this is complete, and right now we're just waiting on SC Edison. We've got all the vehicles sitting over at Saticoy. We're waiting on SC Edison to get the charging stations installed for us. Once that project's done, we'll be over 100. So I told you before, we have just shy of 400. That'll be a quarter of our just generic people movers will be available, be plug-in hybrid, either be plug-in hybrid or electric vehicles. And these are going to go across 4 new locations.
Hey, Chris, can you talk a little bit about the amount of financial impact partnering with Edison had in terms of saving the county dollars?
Yeah, so the infrastructures honestly is the highest cost of any of these projects. Just digging up the ground and putting in, you know, the new transformers, bigger power lines, all cost a lot of money. So for instance, when we went to the board for this right here, we estimated that the infrastructure would cost about $1.6 million. And that's what we're trying to get from Edison. So Edison upgrades their transformer, Edison digs up the ground, Edison puts in all the cables and everything. And if they can pay for that, you know, that leaves us with, I think our component of it between the charging stations and the electric vehicles was a little less than $500,000. So they were definitely taking the brunt, you know, 3 times what we're gonna put in is what they were gonna do. So, you know, I think they have a little bit of incentive because, you know, Edison's basically becoming a shell station, you know, they're basically moving into a realm that guarantees business over 10 years. But at the same time, if they're able to take on that cost from us, that's money that I don't have to ask for or try to scrounge from, you know, grants and funds and available pots of money, which most of the time don't ever add up to 100% of what we need. So speaking of phase 4, this was basically required due to CARB recently approved their advanced clean fleet regulations. Advanced clean fleet is very wide ranging. There's a lot of impacts that are going to be felt. As Harrison is feeling these, just like the county fleet is feeling these, and I actually echo a lot of the things that the Harrison rep said earlier. With that, there is a phased in approach. So, you know, while our requirements are to be 100% zero emission on certain classes between the years 2035 and 2042, our initial requirements to be 10% electric across their their milestone group 1, which is parcel delivery vans, mostly vans, is coming up. So we had to go to the board to ask for permission to partner with Edison to put in 6 EV charging stations and to buy 6 electric vans to cover that group. So then we have, I think in 2026 will be our next reiteration where we have to go, and I think that number is going to be 20. And then every year it's just another, I think then it jumps up to 60, and it stays pretty high year after year. So we're just trying to stay ahead of it as much as we can so that we stay in compliance. So I just want to talk somewhat about long-term impacts, because with these, now that CARB has implemented regulations, you can actually start seeing what the impacts were. When it was theoretical and they were bouncing things around, it was very difficult to measure because you don't know what you're measuring to, but now we know. So just for instance, you know, we talked a little bit about what an internal service fund is. I have an internal service fund. I bill out my customers' rates. There are mileage rates, there's fixed rates, there's vehicle hourly rates. There's a lot of different rates that we bill, but those rates are not, I'm not legally allowed to use those to offset just the increased cost of electric vehicles. You know, these ISFs are set up with approval from the state. So your bucket of money, I can't go out and buy Maseratis, for instance. You know, that's outside of my realm, just as buying very expensive electric vehicles just for the sake of buying those around, which is why we have to go to the board for permission and we have to go to the board for money. When this last iteration where we're buying the vans were almost twice the cost of what a internal combustion van would be. And the CEO's office said, well, we're not going to fund you up front for that, but we're going to have the agencies that you're purchasing the vans for, they'll pay higher for it. And in somehow, however they get funded. So for Craig, he's getting some of these vans, he's going to have to charge his customers higher rates to cover the cost of that. For the Human Services Agency, well, they get money from the general fund. So the general fund's going to have to pay them more money so that they can cover that cost. So the cost comes from somewhere. So you're going to see, you know, for county agencies are going to have to either bring in more money, they're going to have to charge higher rates, or they're going to have to ask the general fund for more money in their budget to be able to cover it. I said a higher upfront cost for vehicles. You know, we've seen about 42%. It really depends. You know, it's at least 40% on all these vehicles. If you get into small vehicles like Chevy Bolts, they're somewhat cost competitive. The larger the vehicle gets, the more the disparity grows. Existing infrastructure needs to be evaluated. And so we talked with Craig about this, and I've also mentioned to the Board of Supervisors, the master plan has to be funded, because I have to make decisions today about where those 20 EVs are going to go in 2 years, because the infrastructure takes 2 years. And if we don't even know where our transformers are and how much output they have, I don't even know how to start. How do I prioritize a location for the next round of electric vehicles if I don't even know which facilities can support and which can't support, and we don't know what the cost to upgrade to do the support is. So, you know, this is a stepping stone to be able to allow us to look at electrifying transportation across the county.
And it's critical because it allows us to optimize our decision making. I think that point can't be more heavily made, like I'm sticking my foot in the back, because if we don't have that, Chris may be forced to make a decision to put vehicles somewhere where it's end up gonna cost you more than it would if we'd have thought through it and had all that data up front.
Mhm.
So we're really trying to get ourselves in a situation where we have good intel, we have good understanding, so we can make the most optimal use of taxpayer dollars to comply with these requirements. But it is a very complex situation, so that's, yeah, I can't emphasize, we're trying to be smart about how we do this.
And I would think too, is that you have to figure out then the life cycle of everything. So it's not just converting them into EVs but it's also then what's the life cycle of those that we have? So you might be purchasing new ones and then replacing.
Mhm.
So that seems like it's a huge exercise.
I'm gonna be
as
honest
well.
with you though, when it comes to life cycle, it's impossible to even estimate because we're such at the forefront of the technology that we can't even test. So I did not know that those Ford Focus electric vehicles were gonna be so pathetic, honestly. Like, we didn't know that. We spent a lot of money for them and they didn't meet the bill. And as we go along, one of my points here is agency leadership and appointing authorities will have reduced vehicle choices to remain in compliance. And I may have to stick them with a subpar vehicle just to stay in compliance. I may have to stick them with something that we don't know that in 3 years that battery composition is gonna catch fire or it's gonna have a serious recall. And so it's from my perspective as a fleet manager, it's absolutely not ideal.
And the reason for that is the next line, I think, read that next line.
Yeah, non-compliance penalties are $100,000 per year per violation. So told you I had 6 vans we've got to do. If we didn't do those 6 vans, that's $600,000 a year until we get those 6 vans. When we get up to 60 vehicles at $100,000, well, now we're looking at $6 million a year in perpetuity until we take care of it. So these are large numbers with a lot of potential for impact, because in that case, if that got passed along to a budget unit, think of the healthcare agency, well, that could cause them to go into the red. That, smaller agencies like probation, that could cause them to go into the red. So, another one here, and I'll just do this at the bottom, is we're doing a lot of studying on hydrogen, impacts of hydrogen, fuel cells, hydrogen direct drive engines. They're unknown, but as you've seen in vehicles, so you've got small vehicles, your Bolts, you're all the way up to like mid-size SUVs, they've successfully converted to electric. But when you get to buses, they've tried, and buses, they're going to hydrogen because electric doesn't work. So there are 2 competing technologies, one starting at the small side, one starting at the big side, and I don't know where they're going to meet in the middle. I can tell you right now, there is not an electric 1-ton pickup truck I can buy. There's not a hydrogen 1-ton pickup truck I can buy. But when I get mandated in 2027, I got to go buy a 1-ton pickup truck that's 0 emission. I don't know what that's going to be, and that's going to create a large problem. And where we get into problems are when you talk about things like public works. So public works has to move into electric vehicles. We tested a dump truck. We tested a 10-yard dump truck. Has 80 miles of range. It weighs 6,000 pounds more than a current dump truck, and our current dump trucks can run up to 250 miles in a day. 300 if we're doing a stormwater issue where they're clearing out so that we don't flood. Well, if I only get 80 miles, best case scenario, and that degrades to 60 miles, and that truck's almost $1 million, where our current trucks are about $300,000, I have to spend 3 times the cost and have 3 times the inventory. And it's going to also, if you're clearing out a channel and you're going from channel to dump site, well, now you're going to have to go channel, dump site, go back to the depot, park it, plug it in, hop in a new one, go back, and it's going to create a lot of waste. And so that's one of the issues that we run into here, because the regulations are ahead of the technology. We're always going to be playing catch up. So this causes a lot of stress. But this is kind of just where we are with our fleet. We make strides where we can, where there is a market available vehicle that I can put my hands on and test. I'll absolutely evaluate it and see how that's going to fit into our county fleet. Where we get into things that are just theoretical, and when I say theoretical, I'm talking about every single manufacturer that puts out a tweet that says they're going to have this electric vehicle available by this date, because not a single one of them has ever met that. They do that to drive their stock price, not to drive actual purchasing. And so that's where I have to look at the manufacturer and say, and really read everything they say with a grain of salt, because they're trying, they want to impact their stock price more than they want to impact the consumers or what's available to the consumers, because they're generally 4 to 5 years behind schedule on everything that they say they're going to put out there. You know, other things like earlier we were talking, used to be whenever I bought vehicles, I could buy vehicles in 90 to 120 days. Now it takes 18 months, 12 to 18 months to get anything. And as we get into complicated replacement processes, because we now have to plan building out infrastructure, so now it's 2+ years. So I'm already thinking about how do we stay in compliance in 2027, even though, you know, we're just now going into 2024, because I know it's going to be 2 to 3 years that we have to plan just to make that milestone. So it's a little bit about our county fleet. You can have the next slide, please. And I would ask if you guys have any questions.
All right, any questions for Chris?
You seem like Mike.
I'm sure if we went to a bar together, we'd have to.
And they include the basic
Commonalities.
Chris is the EV coach.
No, but I really do believe a large part of what you're doing and what I do is I have to tell the truth. I've got to tell you where I see there's a fit. And don't get me wrong, look, we're going to be at 100 electric vehicles within a year. That's a good thing. Where we find a fit, we take it. But I also want to say what the limitations are, because if you never look at what your limitations are, you will never overcome your limitations, because you got your head in your sand like an ostrich. You know, you've got to be up and looking at it to see how am I going to get across that mountain. And there is a large mountain ahead of us.
Very much so. Yeah. Any questions?
No, I think this was a great
It's wonderful.
Yeah.
Chris.
day
Thank you.
for us today with the presentation. So
Very
Yeah,
short.
yeah, very good. Yeah, thank you.
Good presentation, Chris.
Thank you. Thank you, Chris.
And then we have, is it one more?
Nope.
No? All right, so let's go on then to public comments for this item on the agenda. So we have a few people online. If you want to make a public comment, you could take yourself off of mute or raise your hand. So I don't see anybody who wants to do that. Anybody here in the audience? No? All right, seeing
Yeah,
none
this is
then.
so informative.
And I failed to introduce the
Yes.
brains behind everything I said.
Oh, yes, go
Mike
ahead.
Duncan.
Okay.
Man for the VCCEC, so
Wonderful.
thank you.
And I appreciate all these staff because I
Yes, thank you.
constantly contact them and
Good
ask
job.
questions.
Nice
Yeah,
presentation.
thank you.
Great here.
Answer.
Thank you, everyone.
Well, good seeing you, Dave.
Thank y'all.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you so much. Thank you.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
They're on it. That's good to see.
Mhm. So item number 9 then on the agenda is the approval of the 2024 meeting schedule. And you did actually see that in your agenda packet, and also then suggestions of a couple of meetings that should be considered. No, they should be considered that we wouldn't have meetings on certain days. So any questions or any comments on that? Heather, did you want to have any other comments about your notes here for this schedule?
Yes, generally, we meet, the Climate Emergency Council meets on the Tuesdays when there's not a Board of Supervisors hearing. And typically the month of August, the board goes black, so they don't have any meetings. And in the past, we've canceled that meeting. Unfortunately, for the June 25th meeting, our whole sustainability team will be at the California Climate and Energy Collaboration Conference called SEEK. And lastly, the December meeting falls on Christmas Eve. Well, I think that y'all like to come to these meetings. I don't think you want to spend that day here. So, yeah, I didn't see any other conflicts with those meeting dates, and we have the room reserved tentatively.
Okay.
Y'all move forward with this schedule.
I make a motion that we accept this schedule as presented.
Okay. Is there a second?
I can second that.
Okay, awesome. All right, so motion has been made and seconded. Could we have a roll call, please?
Yes. Vice Chair White,
Yes.
Councilmember Syed,
Yes.
Chair Munoz,
Yes.
Councilmember Torre,
Yes.
Councilmember Perez. Yes. Councilmember Varela. Councilmember Keith Colola,
Yes.
Councilmember Para. Councilmember Camarillo,
Yes.
and Councilmember Perez.
Yes.
Forgot to ask if there were any public comments on this one as well. So any public comments on this schedule for 2024? So seeing none, all right, so then let's move on to item number 10, which is where we receive an update from county executive staff.
Yes, sorry, also the order of today's meeting is a little wonky because I wanted to get the presentations out first. So I apologize about the ordering, but
No problem.
we had a lot of people attending. Okay, so your packet just has a real brief update from the county executive office. We had 2 library events in Ojai and Oxnard, and these were super fun. Evie McWheely is our little Evie cartoon character. We had coloring pages, we had Evie McWheely build kits. The Evie advocates of Ventura County came and helped, which was great because one of the Evie advocates is a surgeon and the other was an engineer. And these little Evie McWheely build kits, they're usually for STEM classes. It took an hour and a half to build. There's tons of little screws, but it was really fun. And the kids got to take the Evie McWheely electric vehicles and race them. And it was great because it was females and males all competing to build, to see who could get the Evie McWheely built first. And I will say for the Oxnard event, the females won. And then the thing that was great is we have the portable charging station now. So we take our Chevy Bolts to the library events and let anyone like learn how to use the charging station and see all the different electronics in the EV. So that's great.
You have a portable charger,
Yep,
like
it's
a
very heavy.
suitcase?
It comes in a suitcase. It's yes, it's a very heavy suitcase to carry, and it's very hard to get it back in the suitcase. But we do have a portable charging station.
And where do you charge that up?
It's supposed to plug into, it's like one that you might have at your home. So, but we don't have it plugged in. We just let the kids and stuff learn how to like put it in the little.
Oh, it's not actually putting,
Right, we could if we,
It's not energized. It'll just-
right,
yeah.
we could plug it in and use it, but we just use it as like a little demonstration. Because you know, sometimes if you've never seen an EV, it's kind of intimidating. You're just like, what do I do with this? Where does it go? So it's a great tool. Like our EV coach that went to go work for my cop had thought about it, and we purchased it. And it's been a great tool for
great.
our events, so I'm excited about it. I don't like carrying it, but yeah, so every year, usually around Clean Air Day and October is National Energy Awareness Month. We have these library events, or we do something with the different STEM programs. We have our Zero Emission Equipment Roadshow program. I don't know, I can give the update, but would you?
I can give it, yeah. So I'm not sure if you recall a few meetings ago, I had mentioned that we're looking into our Zero Emission Equipment Roadshow program that's being administered by the American Green Zone Alliance, or AGZA. So the county did decide to take advantage of that. It was completely free. So AGZA dropped off a trailer for us to use of electric landscape equipment for 2 weeks. And so that's actually just wrapping up. Our last day to use that equipment is tomorrow, and then AXA will come by and pick it up Wednesday morning. But GSA maintenance staff was able to use the equipment. It was a wide range, wide variety of equipment that they were able to use, between blowers, push behind mower, trimmers, and things like that. So I'm sure GSA will assess and see which equipment they like best, especially as they mentioned that they'll be moving into some more electric landscaping equipment. So it was just a great opportunity for us to test out some equipment, see what kind of we like best. So that is wrapping up. I also have an update for the climate pollution reduction grant that we received. So as you recall, we are implementing a regional climate action plan with these funds, and the first deliverable is to create a priority climate action plan. We are working with Greenphone Consultants. The contractors have been executed, so we've already started meeting with them, but they will be performing work associated with the regional priority climate action plan, which is due on March 1st. Some of the items included in the PCAP will include the greenhouse gas inventory of priority sectors and associated greenhouse gas reduction measures, as well as a low income and disadvantaged communities benefits analysis. We also created a advisory group comprised of representatives from most cities, which include Moore Park, Fillmore, Fort Hueneme, Ventura, Oxnard, Thousand Oaks, Santa Paula, and Simi Valley. And the Port of Hueneme is also on that advisory committee or advisory group, along with the Ventura County Air Pollution Control District, Ventura County Transportation Commission, and the Central Coast Climate Justice Network. Just so we get the input from all our partners there on, since this is going to be a regional plan. The group has also selected transportation, buildings, and solid waste and waste generation as the 3 priority sectors to include in the PCAP. And so the greenhouse gas inventory that will be created for these sectors, those will be the sectors that we'll be looking at. And we've decided on a baseline year of 2022 as well. And then the advisory committee is currently collecting data for each of the cities, unincorporated county, and regional scale, and on a regional scale to include it in that greenhouse gas inventory. And then the county is also working with the Ferguson group to prepare an application for the second phase of the CPRG funding, which is an implementation grant. And so we'll be able to apply for an application to utilize these grants to actually start implementing the measures that will be included in the priority climate action plan. So we're kind of working concurrently with creating the plan and also making the application, because the application is actually going to be due on April 1st, a month after that PCAP is due.
And we're working on the inventory. Okay, and then the rest of the updates are just information, follow-up information from the edible food recovery program presentation, and then the PowerPoint presentation for the renewable energy project siting assessment update, which basically for that project, the board asked to come back at a later date and for resource management agency to come back at a later date, incorporate some of the public comment into their project scope of work. And so that date has not been determined yet. So more information to come on that.
Okay. Are you still looking for a school district then to partner with?
Yes, we are. Actually, that was also mentioned to our advisory group members, and so AXA, after meeting with them with dropping off the equipment, they did advise us that they do want to work with the school district within Ventura County. They have a slot, I believe they said in January, that they'll have that 2-week availability for to drop off at the school district. So I haven't heard anything yet. There was a county employee that said that they knew of somebody that worked for a school district that would be interested, but I haven't received any information quite yet.
Okay.
So if you do know of anybody, feel free to send them my way, and I can help connect and facilitate that with AXA.
Good. Any questions for Heather or Victor? All right. No questions here, then any public comments for this item? No. Seeing none, then. Okay, thank you. Thanks for the update.
I was worried we weren't gonna have time to get through the whole agenda, but we're on a roll.
Right? We are. Okay, so then we go on to my notes. Right, so we are on item number 11, so receive an update on the technical assistance survey, the results from that. Heather.
Thank y'all for filling out this survey. I believe everyone here responded, so we really appreciate all the information that y'all provided. And again, we have our general plan program COSCC, which is basically the purpose. It was actually a mitigation measure from the climate action or the general plan update to help meet our GHG emission reduction goals and targets. And so they established the Climate Emergency Council, and it's to advise the Board of Supervisors on climate action planning and implementation of the CAP's goals, policies, programs. And the VCCEC is to develop and advise the board regarding recommended sub-programs and policies for the general plan's greenhouse gas reduction strategy. And so the results of the survey were in your packet. And there were some open-ended questions, so I summarized the responses. And then it looks like from what we gathered from the survey results, and this is what I'd like your input on, is there's a need for a consultant or contractor to review the current CAP-related policies and programs in the general plan. Also look at new key state and federal climate-related laws, codes, and regulations, and innovative programs and policies that other jurisdictions have implemented. The consultant contractor would identify gaps and opportunities for new climate, GHG emission reductions, and other sustainability policies and programs, and present those findings to the VCCEC, and also identify, data analysis tools and scientific studies. And then the consultant contractor could support the Climate Emergency Council in developing proposals and associated GHG emission reductions to be included in the update to the unincorporated county's GHG emission inventory. That a good summary comments?
What do you all think? Yeah.
I think I have a general question is,
Okay.
who would this consultant report to? This board, or I guess when I initially voted for it, I was thinking more as putting funding in the budget to get a consultant to help the sustainability division, but I guess maybe I'm looking for some clarification.
The consultant would
Good
support
question.
the Climate Emergency Council, but the data, the analysis, and information they provide would also benefit our sustainability division and what we're working on for our climate action plan implementation projects and policies.
So they would report directly to
So
you?
To the
it would
group
be a contract that the sustainability division would administer, but it would be a resource for the Climate Emergency Council.
So it benefit everyone.
Yes,
Right,
it would
okay,
definitely
That
benefit
makes sense.
the Climate Emergency Council as well as the Sustainability Division.
Gotcha, perfect.
So usually with a consultant, somebody has to manage them, the group, so. My understanding would be is that
Yes.
the sustainability division, but we would have access then to that consultant for work that would be generated for this group. Yeah.
So I have a
Yes,
question.
Vice
So, yeah, this is great that the recommendation that we made last May, was it? May, June, is moving forward. So is that gonna get into the budget
Yes, so
coming up?
I've been working with Alejandra and I personally do develop the budget, so the information has been presented and I'll have to find out about the update with the budget process from Alejandra, but to my understanding, we will include this.
Yeah, I would visualize this new person, he or she, developing new policies and programs, greenhouse gas emission reduction policies and programs. For you, for the county's sustainability primarily, but also to support us. So the both, I think that's great. I think that's what's missing in in the county's effort is to have a technical person who can pull all this together and say, hey, we know that we need to do more, and here's some ideas on how you could get there. I think it's wonderful that it's moving forward. Yay to you and Alejandra.
I mean, I will say that we do have technical staff on our team. We just have our programs that are assigned to us. That, you know, we already have a scope of work, so.
Yeah, so this would hopefully get us then to making those recommendations through the planning to the board for those items that we see are important that need to be added to reduce greenhouse gases, but it's that technical person we needed in order to help us then measure what our policies would be, you know, how much of that could be reduced. Do we move forward on it? And so that's why this was really difficult to get to this point.
I think it's important to remember that, that the onus is on county. CEO's office, Sustainability Division, to move the climate action plan forward with new policies and programs. If we can come up with some here, that would help, but the main effort really needs to come out of your department.
All departments share. in the
Because of
Yeah.
everybody, huh? Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, because not only was it the plan, like a plan, but it was doled out as to, you know, who would be
Correct.
responsible then.
And yeah, I was so impressed to see the GSA presentations today to understand that they're really looking at this seriously and doing things to address climate.
Yeah, they all are.
But they don't have a choice. Because it's state mandates, and that's my point. You know, we already have all these state mandates, and we have to know if we're keeping up with them, and we heard this today, which was excellent. But the piece it's missing is we don't have an ongoing measuring program. So how do we measure to improve if it's the inventory is a 5-year program rather than a every other year program? Because you heard the Harrisons, it takes time to get all that information through and back. So you could be getting a report today on a 2021 inventory because of the cycles, 1 or 2 years almost through the whole program. So making recommendations on policy and programs gets a little bit difficult because we don't have the last set of data to see if all the policies and programs implemented have actually worked.
It's coming.
No, I know it's coming. This is not on you. I'm just from a measuring perspective. I think the consultant is really important to help staff and this council ask those questions and hopefully get answers. But I also think what's missing in this is the county is also seen as a regional element in support of the 10 cities. Sheriffs, fire, hospitals, jails, you know, how do those get included when there's some level of responsibility on the cities that are using these infrastructures for that reduction also? And there's also some synergies in facilities and infrastructure that help us be a little bit more efficient, because as you heard today, being green is expensive. And everywhere you turn, and how do we spread that out through economies of scale? Like Gold Coast Recycling serves not just the county, but the city of Ventura, the city of Carpinteria, the city of Camarillo, the city of Ojai. And it's all brought together in a private industry sector that's creating benefit across the western region. That's not in here today. It doesn't have to be, because I support moving forward with some help, technical help, but those are some thoughts.
I will say, through the climate pollution reduction grant, we're working with our cities on, you know, a regional plan. But we also have, through the Ventura County Regional Energy Alliance, we have a board of directors. It's made up of all of our cities, special districts, and school districts, but we have energy champions that are at all of our cities, as well as partner agencies and some community-based organizations. And we have quarterly meetings. We just had one last week about the climate pollution reduction grant, about 3C REN programs that are coming. as well as electric vehicles and infrastructure, one of, to your point about, are the cities coordinating? One of the questions was about EV infrastructure, like and we have, an electric vehicle blueprint map that, gets updated periodically that, shows where there's gaps in charging network. And so, we coordinate with all the cities, like, where do y'all want charging stations? And then we look at this map and do GIS buffers. I don't know how to use GIS anymore. But and we figure out locations, and that's a lot of information when we apply for grants. We work with our cities and look to see where gaps and put in applications that benefits all of our cities as well as the county and the communities with putting in charging infrastructure. So we do try to coordinate with our cities.
Great.
Yeah.
And I will say too, the advisory group meetings for CPRG are monthly, especially with the quick timeline for that March deadline. So we are there. It's pretty constant discussions with our partners and just making sure we're getting everybody's input and we're aligning everybody to succeed.
Back to this, with respect to the budget, what does that timeline look like? If I remember from many months ago when we kind of first brought this up, there was no real hurry to even vote on this because the budget for 2024 has already been established. So we want to get this on the 2025 budget. So
Yes, so it'll be fiscal year 24/25. And I believe like the real putting the budget together starts in January. It might start a little bit in December, but I believe the big push for putting together the different budgets usually occurs between January and March.
okay.
And then the budgets are presented to the Board of Supervisors at kind of middle of June.
Okay.
And then it'll start then July 1st for the next fiscal year.
So if we want to get stuff working for that budget, we basically have through Q1 of next year
Yes.
kind of formalize it so that we can put it on.
And
But we do have to get it on the radar earlier than that.
Right.
So that's the hang up that we all had for putting it into the budget last year because we didn't get it into the funnel earlier.
And I'll work with Alejandro to provide a little bit more detailed update on the budget development.
Any questions or comments? Anyone?
Good job.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you.
Any public comments? So for the three that are online. Public comments for this item. All right, seeing none. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for the survey. I think it was wonderful to sum up the questions for us and then to come up with the opportunity for us to work together. Thank
I
you.
guess I do have one question. So where do we go from here now? We voted on it. We've kind of got an idea of what kind of consultant we're at, and now you'll put out a bid or RFP.
I'll
Or are
work
we
with-
just gonna put like a budgetary number and a line item for the budget next year?
I will work with Alejandra to see what the next steps are after we've determined what the scope of work may look like. So I don't have that information, but I will get it to y'all.
Mhm.
It's gotta be in the budget.
Yeah, just give them some framework about how we want to move forward. All right, so let's move on to item number 12. We have about 10 minutes left here. 12 is council member comments and future agenda items. So any council member comments, vice chair comments here?
Just a comment that I thought this was a very well organized meeting today with presentations with meat in them that kind of really give us a level of confidence that everybody's serious about this and they're actually making lots of headway on it. So I just wanted to tell you, thank you.
Yeah, because then you can see like how each department is really trying to implement then this plan, whether it's the laws coming down or, the movement here. Absolutely.
The challenges it is.
Very much so. Yeah. Any other comments? Yeah.
Just to
Councilmember
follow up to
Burrow.
agendize the trip to Gold Coast Recycling.
Yeah.
Yeah, I was gonna, so what I have kind of for future agenda items, some were scheduled for like January. And depending on if y'all want to meet in December or not, we could arrange some stuff. One item will be an overview of our climate action plan tool that shows, we call it the cap map. So it shows our progress and it's a portal online. And so Morel will be given a demonstration on that at a future CEC meeting. 3C Ren expanded programs will be another item that we'd like 3C Ren staff to present on their new ag, commercial and municipal 3 new programs. And then we have a presentation scheduled for waste management in January. And then Ana Rosa is the supervisor for the Central Coast Climate Justice Network, 3CJN.
Easy for you to say.
And then she would like to give a presentation on environmental justice and the Ventura County Green New Deal that they're launching, I think, in December. So those are kind of the next presentations, and there might be a couple additions. And if there's anything else for the next couple of meetings, just let me know what y'all are interested in. But yeah, we'll play for the next couple of meetings.
I'm gonna try and put together a presentation that I shared with Heather in repurposing the offshore platforms that are getting decommissioned right now.
Oh, wonderful.
I tried to do it on my own, but it's way above my pay grade. So instead, I'll be asking for funding to do a formal study. See what something like that would look like. So
We were just talking, at our Energy Champion meeting, Giles Pettigrew Pettifor from the Port of Wainini was talking about wind energy, and there's a group that's working on this too, so I was gonna put y'all in touch.
oh, awesome.
And for me, just letting you know that I attended the State of the County address with Dr. Sabette Johnson a few weeks back. Sustainability Division was part of the entire big, like 1 hour presentation, but the group was plugged in there. Just want to acknowledge that. And I've run into a couple of people that I think would be great to bring on in terms of a presentation. So that would be Gold Coast Transit. And Vanessa was really very excited to hear about what we're doing here, and was looking forward to possibly coming out. And then for Oxnard Harbor District, Port of Wainini, and what they're doing there with the offshore wind generating. It was very informative. It's just really more of like a thought, but they're looking to see who could do that, and well, anyways, we'll let them present that information. I saw one presentation not too long ago from them. So those would be my suggestions for future agenda items. All right, public comments on this section, item number 12.
I was gonna say to the field trip to go.
Oh, yes.
Transit, we'll have to figure out if that would be in place of a meeting or in addition to a meeting, I guess. And we also had talked to the Resource Conservation District about a field trip too. So I don't know if those would be combined or separate.
So I know.
RCD, I think for that one, it would be something like a demonstration site. So if they're hosting an event, usually those demonstration sites are gonna be, or demonstration events are a farm that's implementing some regenerative ag practices or things of that nature. So it likely be something along those lines. So we'll stay on the radar of the demonstration events.
And then when we have off-site meetings, we can either go so that we don't violate the Brown Act and have it be like, minimum number of people, various dates. Or if we go and we have to be able to invite then the public to go. So we just have to follow those rules when we do the tours. Yeah.
I think my
okay.
preference would be to do it in lieu of one of these meetings, just to have things on schedules.
Okay, okay, all right. So
That's my
noted,
preference.
okay, okay,
I'm
very
not
good,
gonna be here in January meeting. I'm out of, I'm going to India during that time, so I won't be
Okay.
here.
for January, you mean? Okay, keeping that in mind then. Okay, all right. So anything else for the good of the order? Yes, Vice Chair.
I just want to compliment Heather on this has been a really good meeting today.
Yes, thank you,
Good
Heather.
job.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so then the next Climate Emergency Council meeting is going to be on Tuesday, December the 19th. Same place.
Does that work for everyone? I know that December kind of gets hectic.
No way.
19th.
Okay.
Unfortunately, I won't be here. I'll be at COP29 in Dubai.
Okay.
So,
Fancy.
yeah, won't be here Monday.
Yeah, I'll be here.
All right,
Okay.
very good. Meeting adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you.
Yes.
I know. You have to put in a work.
Yeah.
Can you please fix